If you want to crown them, then crown their ass. Bears.
Stafford down the middle is intercepted. DJ Moore.
Overthrows and intercepted for DJ Moore.
Will I see you again?
Cleveland throws and it's intercepted by DJ Moore.
Pushing up the hill, searching for the thrill of it.
Takes the snap from his own end zone, winds up, throws into traffic, and it's deflected. Picked up by DJ Moore. Moore to 10, 5, end zone. Touchdown! Touchdown Bears! DJ Moore, pick six.
You are tuned in to the Chris and DJ Show with former Chicago Bears nickelback DJ Moore.
Yeah, I think everybody is kind of on edge right now in Chicago, hearing from folks inside that building saying, don't know, it's got kind of a weird feel to it right now. Everything's kind of quiet. It's kind of eerie. So no one there is sitting there saying, yeah, we're out of the woods. It's going to be Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace for the Bears in 21. Nobody seems to know. And now the media is talking about it because there's really been no end-of-season press conference scheduled to this point. So they're saying that keeps getting kind of kicked into the future a little bit. So
what's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Chris and DJ Show. I'm Chris Shanafelt. He's former Chicago Bear DJ Moore. And DJ, the Bears season ended on Sunday against the Saints in the Wild playoffs. But there's still plenty to talk about. In about 10 minutes, we'll be joined by Carmen Defalco. He hosts the Carmen and Yurko Show Monday through Friday on ESPN 1000 in Chicago from noon to 2 p.m. Looking forward to chatting with him, definitely. But DJ, that clip that was just played was from this afternoon, NFL Network. And, I'm preparing for the show, sitting here, doing some research. And about 90 minutes before we hop on the air, DJ, we got some clarity. We're starting to get some clarity out of Hallis Hall and what to expect, what the future of the franchise is starting to look like, at least moving forward to next season. After 2 days of silence, reports have it that defensive coordinator Chuck Pagano will be retiring, or I think retiring, which means the Bears will be in the market for a new defensive coordinator. And to go with those rumors, DJ, Brad Biggs of the Chicago Tribune was the first to get this out there. Both Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy are expected to return next season. Bears fans not very elated, to say the least. DJ, what do you think?
I think with Nagy and Pace, I mean, they've been reporting that Nagy wasn't going to stay, so I'm assuming you wasn't going to, let go of the GM. So, but again, it said expected. Nobody knows, nobody is saying anything, so that is a mystery.
We got Matt Nagy chiming in right there.
Yeah, so no end of season like press conference or anything like that. So again, somebody is like, you know what? Pump your brakes. Not just yet. The fat lady hasn't sung on this next season thing yet. You know what I mean? We really don't know. Now with defense coordinator, and Chuck Pagano, I think he did a fine job. But when you have that many people go out, young cornerbacks, COVID-19, I mean, it just was tough. I think we're gonna have to go and get some veteran players on the defensive side, and I know we'll talk about that later. But again, Chuck was, always been a good, defensive coordinator, so they got to find somebody, to fill those shoes. Now, again, when you're talking defense, is it 4-3, 3-4? Do they run pressure? Do they not run pressure? Do they like to play a lot of man? Because the corners we have are not all that good at press man. So, like, what direction do you kind of go in? So that is, that's going to be a big decision for him, because this defense, even this year, has been what's holding, Nagy's job. So hopefully he doesn't pick someone lightly.
Right, and so there was Zach Pearson. He's on the Bears beat for the Bears Report, and he brought up a name that makes the most sense, Jay Rodgers. He's the Bears defensive line coach, because if you're an up-and-coming position coach that is getting these interviews to be a defensive coordinator, do you really want to come to Chicago? While, yes, the Bears have these names on defense, Eddie Jackson, Khalil Mack, Akeem Hicks, Kyle Fuller. I mean, they have the names there, but it does have its flaws. The glaring flaw, at least for somebody new coming into this situation, DJ, is Matt Nagy. He's going to be on the final year of his contract next year. I mean, I think there's people that are probably surprised that he's getting another year, according to those reports out there, DJ. If you're a guy that's going out and going to get his first defensive coordinating job, do you want this one, knowing that you could very well be one and done here in Chicago?
I'll say yes. I think because the coaching tree is so big that if I get this job and it's one and done, I'm sure I'll find somebody who can kind of, I think, pick me up, or either that, that defensive coordinator job may even lead you to a head college coaching job. I think when you have an opportunity to step up and do something that you're not used to doing, not comfortable doing, you haven't called plays and you want to be that guy, do it in the second biggest media market. A lot of scrutiny, a lot of pressure, but again, you have players on defense where they'll look at you and be like, because the last guy, Chuck was a head coach before, and then the guy before him is a head coach now. So again, it almost seems like if you want to be a head coach, go coach this really good defense, and it may be a route for you to be a head coach somewhere else.
Right, and I always think back to one of the names that kind of comes to mind, and it's a positional coach, but Deuce Staley from the Philadelphia Eagles. I think he's been there for 7 or 8 years now. Maybe even dating back to one of Andy Reid's last years, or maybe the Chip Kelly era. He's been there for a few coaching regimes. So I almost think that, he's obviously made his impact felt, and, even new coaches coming in see that, tend to have him stick around, and we'll see what his future is looking like now in Philadelphia. People think that maybe he should get a look, at least an interview for the head coaching gig there that's available, of course. Chuck Pagano, and I say in quotation marks, DJ, retiring, because this totally feels like a scapegoat opportunity for Matt Nagy and company, kind of like what we seen last year, except that came from the offensive side of the football, as Nagy axed both offensive coordinator Mark Helfrich and offensive line coach Harry Hiestand, and really put all the blame on the lack of running and the lack of success they had in running the football on those two guys. Now they're using the term, at least right now. The Bears have yet to confirm any of this, but you got some reputable people, reputable reporters out there reporting this. So I gotta think it's true. They're using the term retiring, DJ, but this is a firing, right? I mean, I don't think this is the end of what we'll see from Chuck Pagano.
I can't say that. Well, I just don't know his situation. Kids, grandkids. He's, I think, been through a lot, been a head coach, been a great coach for a long time. So again, he just, may be his time. So I think he's done good enough to stay. That's why I'm saying I don't think it would be a firing for me. That's why I think it's a legitimate, like, you know what, I think it's time for me to move on, because even from, this past game, like, you did the best you can do with the pieces that you were dealt. Mentateo got, off of catfish and came straight into the locker room with you. You know what I mean? And then to be down and have really young second-year corner, a first-year corner playing against an offense like this, really with limited pass rush. And so, again, I think you did a great job. Now, again, after the Green Bay game, everything started to kind of trickle down a little bit. But you played Green Bay, who was a really good team. You played them twice. So again, I think as a defensive unit, I think he did good enough to say. So I would say it sounds legit. Now I would think that Chuck was a lot, and I don't even know how old he is. He looked good. How old is Chuck?
Give me 2 seconds and I'll find that out for you. I gotta think, 60.
He might be 7.
60 on the dot. Yeah, he'll turn. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So again, some coach for longer. I guess some coach for shorter. So I mean, I guess it could be that, but again, I'm sure somebody will be able to tell him, "Hey, man, come on and coach with us," or something like that. But again, and again, in Chicago, it is stressful. Like it's like when something goes wrong, especially with this team. I think he got hit harder than Nagy did a lot of times. It's like, man, you really on him for like one game, but for 3 seasons, your offense been struggling. But we over here saying like, hey, let's give him another season. So I think when you're talking defense in Chicago, it is held to a very high standard, year in and year out, and especially what we've come on the last couple of years and this year. And I think towards the middle of the season, it had a big drop off. So.
It did, and especially the second half of the season, big drop off from the defensive side of the ball. But like you said, Matt Nagy was brought here to turn things around on the offensive side of the football, and we're still waiting for that to happen. Again, we'll discuss that and a lot more. Right now, it's a pleasure to welcome onto the show Carmen Defalco. There he is, Carmen Defalco from ESPN 1000 in Chicago. He hosts the Carmen and Yurko show noon to 2 weekdays. And quick story, true story, if it wasn't for Carmen, I would never have started podcasting. So definitely have a lot to thank you for, Carmen. How's everything going? Appreciate you taking the time.
Good, Chris. It's been a while, buddy. Good to see you.
Long time.
Hey, what's up?
How you doing, man?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm hanging in there.
Good.
So, Carmen, DJ and I, we were just talking about, the deafening silence out of Hallis Hall the past 48 hours. And an hour before the show starts, you get the news that defensive coordinator Chuck Pagano will be retiring, or again, I like to say retiring from coaching. And rumor has it, Brad Biggs had it first from the Chicago Tribune that it looks like both Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy will both be returning for another year. We're still unsure about when the end of the year press conferences will take place, but you do have guys like Brad Biggs. You got all the Chicago beat basically confirming it, that it does surely sound like both Pace and Nagy will be back. Chuck Pagano gone. What were your takeaways, Carm?
Well, I mean, I guess there's always a sacrificial lamb, right, when things go bad. I mean, DJ probably knows that as well as anybody. I mean, last year was Harry Heastand, and I mean, this is just sort of what happens when, everybody's sort of beating down the gates, and they don't want to make wholesale changes. So conveniently, Chuck Pagano is going to retire. Maybe he was really thinking about it, maybe not. I don't know. I mean, my biggest takeaway is that it's kind of hard to imagine that you're going to let Ryan Pace try to find the quarterback again when his history at properly identifying that position is not very good. He tried to trade up for Marcus Mariota, and that didn't work, and then successfully traded up for Mitch, and obviously that's going to be maybe the greatest all-time fail in NFL history, considering the 2 likely Hall of Famers that went after him, and signing Mike Glennon and trading for Nick Foles, even though that was probably as much Matt Nagy as it was Ryan Pace. And there's even more than that. There's Mark Sanchez, brought in as a backup, and the Tyler Bray thing all these years and protecting him over and over again on the practice. I mean, the history of quarterbacking under Ryan Pace is just not good. And to think that they're going to let him pick another one when he might be out a year from now, where the coach might be out a year from now, when you've got a brand new quarterback coming in all likelihood, it's a little surprising. I know it's very upsetting for most Bears fans, and that much I can tell just from being on social media for about the last hour or so.
Well, for me, is it likely that there's a new quarterback, or are they keeping these coaching staff to say, let me give Mitch one more year and all of them leave? Because like you're saying, why am I going to give you, if you failed at doing it this many times, you bring in the butt phone and all this other stuff, and you're telling me I'm going to give you the one, I'm going to let you do it before you leave? Like, to me, it just doesn't make any sense. So again, I don't know if it's Foles, is it Trubisky, whatever it is, one of those 2 guys have to play next year.
Yeah, and you're probably right, but I still think they've got to come out of the draft with a quarterback of the future. I mean, it's not going to be Foles, it's not going to be Trubisky. I mean, I think they know that much now. next year, it probably is going to be one of those guys. DJ, you're right. It's probably going to be Foles. I mean, I would think it's going to be Foles, as awkward and as bad as that might be for a lot of people. But yeah, in 2021, it's probably going to be a veteran quarterback, and you're going to be bringing along a young. I mean, you're not drafting in the top 10. I mean, it'd be different if you had a top 10 pick, and you look at the history of, I think going back to about 2000. I don't have this stat exactly right, but I've seen it in the last couple of years. It's something to the effect of going back about the last 20 years. Quarterbacks drafted in the top 10. I think 95% of them at some point start in their rookie season. Teams just don't have patience much anymore. They want to get their young guys out there. They want them to play. And, quarterbacks picked in the top 10 or 12 are going to play. That's not going to be the Bears. I mean, they're going to probably take one in one of the later rounds. And so, yeah, Mitch or Nick will probably be the quarterback in 21. And you're going to be slowly developing a quarterback behind them. It's surprising to me that they want Ryan, or they're going to give Ryan another shot to try to properly identify that quarterback. I think that's I don't even know if it scares Bears fans. I think it's what has them angry right now more than anything, and sort of confused and upset.
Yeah, and next year I gotta think. I mean, right now this team is a lot closer from a rebuilding stage than they are to competing for a Super Bowl. But you're bringing both of these guys back. I don't think I know this was a conversation last week, Carmen. I don't think we got any clarification on it. I don't know how many years Ryan Pace has left on his deal, on his contract. Matt Nagy, though, he's heading into his last year. I mean, he's going to have to show something next year. And I think it's got to come out of the win-loss column in order to be back in 2022. I feel like I don't know if lucky or privilege is the right term to use, but I don't know if he should be back in 21, Matt Nagy.
No, I mean, that's fair. Look, Doug Peterson's out 3 years after winning a Super Bowl in a place like Philadelphia, for crying out loud. You would have thought he'd have a job like that for life after finally delivering in Philly. And I get there were some extenuating circumstances there. I think that he just got to a point where he didn't want to be told much anymore how he had to do things. And it sounds like he pushed back a little bit with the owner in the last week or so, and that's why Doug Peterson's out. But, I mean, this league, all these leagues these days don't have much patience anymore. The fan bases get riled up. I mean, everything is amplified on social media. The barrage can be never ending and exhausting for franchises. And there's just not much, guys don't have, there's just not much of a leash anymore. I mean, there really isn't. And so, could you make the argument that Nagy doesn't even deserve to be back for a fourth year? Sure. Part of me would still like to see Matt Nagy with a more capable quarterback. I'll be honest. The Foles thing really blew up in his face. That's not a good look for him. He's failed to develop Mitch, but I don't know that anybody could really develop Mitch in the type of quarterback that's going to truly win you games. And so part of me wants to give Matt a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, or at least give him a chance with a quarterback that it's better suited to run his full offense. But yeah, I mean, it's fair to question. It's fair to wonder. I mean, how much you're going to give this guy, and how many opportunities are you going to give him after two very disappointing years where you were just you were 500, and I guess you could be worse. But I mean, to think where they were in 18 in this sort of window that we all thought they were entering, 2 years later to be 8-8, 8-8, and nary a playoff win in the 3 years he's been here. Really not even, nothing out of the offense. I mean, 24 total points in 2 playoff games. Granted, a drop touchdown on Sunday, but 24 total points just in this league, that's not getting it done.
No, it's not at all. So what's your thinking about, quarterback, even this year? Like, it's after the top 2 or either probably the top 1, like, what do you find a quarterback at? Are we looking for a late round Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, like, out of nowhere type of a person? Or do you have to go somewhere? Because I think they need needs at corner, and line is of much need. I think if you watch the playoff games with the Browns, you're like, you know what? You need a lot of linemen, and they are very, very valuable. So for you, if you were the GM, you're Pace. We fired Pace. We put you in. Congratulations. Now they're going to talk bad about you.
Yes.
What are you going to do?
Where I'm picking in the first round, I'm going after an O-lineman, I think, without a doubt. And it's like a quarterback. I mean, yeah, you'd like to be in the top 10 for one of those players, but if we were reading something this morning that said, I think Alex Leatherwood from Alabama is like the 5th rated, lineman. I mean, if he's the 5th rated lineman, sign me up. And I don't want to pretend like I'm an expert at breaking down O-line player, being able to accurately look at a kid in college and tell you, yeah, he's going to be great. But if there's some depth there and they're picking, towards somewhere around 2/3 of the way through the first round, I mean, to me, I'm identifying the best offensive lineman available, and I'm taking him because they do need a lot of help there. You got a couple of undrafted guys that you plugged in, and granted, they played reasonably well. I mean, once they put Mustafa and Bars in, the line sort of was solidified a little bit, and Bars probably only was an undrafted player because of some injury concern coming out of Notre Dame. So, even though there's some young guys there that might have a bright future, your 2 guys on the end are old, breaking down, and don't look so good anymore. So there's no doubt you're out there looking for probably a couple of tackles. And I know they drafted one late last year, but those are real flyers, those 7th round long shots for tackles. They did do that last year last April in the draft, but I'm looking for the lineman, the best lineman available to me. And then I'm finding a quarterback somewhere later, 2nd round, 3rd round, somewhere where you could, hope to hit, like DJ said, on a Dak, on a Russell Wilson. They could have drafted Jalen Hurts last year in the 2nd round. They chose not to. I don't think they can get through the first couple of rounds of April's draft without a quarterback, guys. I really don't. I think they're going to have to draft one somewhere.
Definitely, especially if Mitch does go and he lands elsewhere, not here in Chicago, and Nick Foles is really the only quarterback of course I'm sure they'll find a way to bring Tyler Bray back. If Matt Nagy's here, I'm sure Tyler Bray will be back here in Chicago. How about Allen Robinson though, Carm? I know you guys had him on your show earlier today, and he made some interesting points. He's been really honest. Really, ever since he's gotten here in Chicago, even this year, once a lot of these questions about his contract and the possible franchise tag, those questions getting brought up. I think if you didn't find a way to sign Allen Robinson, seeing what he did the first 2 years he was here in Chicago, even after this yet another stellar year as a receiver for the Bears, where wide receivers go to die, as Musa Muhammad used to say. Yeah. I don't think they're going to get anything resolved, especially with the salary cap going down. I heard you guys mentioning. I don't think you could franchise tag Allen Robinson, as great of a player as he is. What do you think about the future of Allen Robinson?
Yeah, I guess nebulous at best right now, which isn't good. I mean, I really think he's a good player worth holding on to. I mean, I don't know what Allen Robinson wants to be paid. I don't know if he's got it in his mind that he has to be the highest paid wide receiver in football, then maybe it's in the Bears' best interest to say thanks for the last 3 years and let him go on his way. If Allen Robinson wants to stick around for $17 million a year, even though the cap is going down, I think the Bears would be foolish to let him go. With all that they need to fix on their offense, I don't know that you want to have to replace a number 1 wide receiver. I know PFF, Pro Football Focus, isn't for everybody, and that's fine. Take it for what it's worth. I believe they graded him as the 4th best wide receiver in the NFL in 2020. I know that only 2 wide receivers in the NFL the last 2 seasons have more receiving yards than Allen Robinson. Those 2 players are Stephon Diggs and DeAndre Hopkins. He has as many touchdowns as DeAndre Hopkins the last 2 years. And he's played the last 2 years on truly one of the 4 or 5 worst offenses in the league. I think Allen Robinson's really good. Is he as good as DeAndre Hopkins? No, he might not. He's probably not. But I would not. For me, I'm keeping him. I'm doing whatever I can to keep him. And if the number is reasonable, I think the Bears would be wise to find a way to make Allen Robinson happy and keep him here, because I wouldn't want to have to replace that position. Darnell Mooney looks like he might be a fine player, but I don't know that I'll ever be able to be Allen Robinson on the, doesn't have size. And so to me, that's just it's one of the true positions of strength they have on their offense. I mean, he is clearly their best offensive player, and to have to replace that player, I think would be difficult considering everything they already have to do.
And he's only 26 years old.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I just wouldn't keep him.
You wouldn't keep him, DJ?
Well, you have so many other holes in one of the easiest positions to find somebody in the draft.
That's true. That's true.
Every single year, I can't touch you but for half a second. All you need to do is be able to run and stop. And you can find people like that everywhere. Now, again, Nagy's offense should be good enough to where you disguise plays to get people open, which he didn't really care about that against the Saints. Like, you know what? You line up man to man. If you can't beat them, then you just can't beat. It just didn't make any sense. So again, I think you have to put your money elsewhere because you got to find somebody to actually protect the quarterback without having to say, let me do a play action right, play action left. And this is the only way that I can buy time for one receiver and everybody else, you know what I mean, to stay in and block. So I just think it's just this cap is going down. I would get a lot of players. Like if
that's a fair it's a fair point. I mean, right? It's more and more it looks like wide receivers can come into this league and contribute. Look at the class. I mean, and everybody talked about the 2020 class being one of the best ever. And look at the way some of those guys performed. Look at the way Justin Jefferson performed in Minnesota, for crying out loud. And really a lot of them. I mean, who you can look at and that you'd say, yeah, I mean, bright futures. Even the Bears finding a 5th-round pick in Mooney, who looks like, he'll have a place in this league for a long time and has a good future. So that's a fair counterpoint. It's maybe easier than ever to find those guys with size and speed and plug them into these modern offenses in the NFL, and they're used to playing up tempo in college. So maybe you're right. It's just I still think he's awfully good, and I don't know that there are many better out there. And if I could keep him, I would. If he says, "Look, I need $25 million a year," I get it. You can't do that with everything they have invested in the defense, with the cap going down, and the problems that they do have on offense. Yeah, that's going to be an impossibility. They can't pay Allen Robinson that. I get it. If they can come to some common ground, I'd like to see that happen. But maybe you're right, DJ.
Well, they might be in search of a few wide receivers because Anthony Miller and Javon Wims aren't getting the job done. They got, they might be playing the wrong sport for what I'm concerned.
I mean, Anthony Miller, you got to be more disciplined than that, especially considering. I mean, you could tell Nagy's frustration in that after the game Sunday. I mean, Nagy went out of his, talked about it in the post game. They spent some time, and Nagy said, when you're getting ready for a playoff game, all the work you have to put in to take 15 to 20 minutes out of your day is significant. And they did that away from X's and O's, away from practice. They took 20 minutes to talk about CJ Gardner-Johnson. I mean, and that's the kind of emphasis they put on it. And it just can't happen. And I know look, we all know, right? I mean, how frustrating it can be when you're struggling, you feel like a guy's getting the best of you, you're losing, a guy's talking. I mean, like, I get it. It's frustrating, but it is the same guy that got you earlier in the year. He's a known agitator around the league. His own teammate punched his lights out in training camp. I mean, like, that's who he is. And you've got to know that. And it sounds like they addressed it. And for Anthony Miller to still lose his cool when they were already without one of their better wide receivers and get tossed is just, I mean, it's worse than the Wims drop when you think about it. I mean, it is. It's just unacceptable. They had to play the whole second half without him. It's terrible.
No, it was bad. Now, when I hear I spent 15, 20 minutes on him, like, what did you do with the offense? Like, I need you to be prepared for, like, what do we need to do? Because, again, when you're a professional athlete, and I didn't got kicked out of the game, but if you up, it looks really cool. But when you don't have a lot, it looks awful. But it's like, I don't have to tell you this, man. Like, just don't do that. You haven't been playing. You've been tweeting. You've been mad. Mooney is out, and then somebody else is out. Like, it's just you. Like, you going to finally get the ball. He had just caught a pass over the middle. Yep. It's like, and when I seen the replay, I'm like, oh, my goodness, he gone, man.
And you saw it was the same guy. You're like, not again. It's 22 again. Like, you got to know.
The referee was so nice, though, because the other kid really just talked to him. He shouldn't have even gotten a flag for it. I'm like, the ref was like, you know what? You talk a lot of shit. You know what? I'm gonna give it to both of y'all.
Yeah.
Like, really, he just does. I mean, it just was like, no. Well, and then he's mad. Like, who are you mad at?
I know.
This particular time, but there's nothing. This is just like, what? But after that, he's like, yeah, this game is, this is
the whole game, unfortunately, was undisciplined. And I mean, I know a lot of times you could point to maybe a reflection on the coach and the coaching staff. Like, why are you being so undisciplined in a playoff game? Why is Eddie Jackson jumping off sides on 4th and 3 down near the goal line, giving them another, giving the Saints?
I can defend that.
You can defend that?
Yeah. Well, he's a star player on defense trying to make a play. Like, he's just trying to make a play because, again, if he doesn't jump, they're going to get the first down. He's back at safety trying to keep an umbrella over everything when you got young corner this, young nickel this, young linebacker here. Like he's just trying to just pull a Ed Reed or Palomalu and just do something just
up.
he's supposed to do. So I can understand that. But it's just the other one just like, come on. It's a helmet. He ain't even gonna feel it, man.
No.
It's just
no.
no.
On the topic of penalties in that New Orleans game, Carm. I mean, how about that penalty to Cole Kmet? He's handed the ball, or he's tossing the ball to the referee as he's jawing with Malcolm Jenkins, and he gets a unsportsmanlike penalty flag, and it turns a 3rd and short near the goal line into 3rd and 20, and I was watching your Twitch feed, and John Yurkovich, your partner there at ESPN 1000, his reaction to that play, I mean, it was spot on. I mean, what a bullcrap call that was. And, I just couldn't, I mean, it didn't even bounce off Malcolm Jenkins. It went right through the referee's hands, and they throw a flag on Kmet.
That was soft. I thought that was a really bad call. I mean, I don't think Cole was doing anything malicious there. I mean, there were, like you said, there was a player between he and the official. He and Malcolm Jenkins were kind of going back at one another a little bit, and that's fine. I mean, that wasn't escalating in any sort of physical confrontation at that point, and he just flipped the ball over him. I mean, I don't know what else he was really supposed to do. I don't know how the ref read that exactly. I don't know. We all had the same reaction. I know we're biased as Bears fans. I think most football fans probably looked at that, though, and said that didn't seem all that egregious. I mean, really, what's the sin or what's the foul there? Quick fuse, I guess, on the ref.
That was terrible on his part. This is the issue. We spend 20 minutes talking about don't let anybody agitate you. We focus on him, but we know the team itself is going to try to get under your skin. He tackles you. You rush him, put your hand on his shoulder, and the ref has to come, put a wedge in between you and try to break you up. And then once you throw the ball, you're like, well, what happened? You can't react that way. So that's on you when you rush the play. I mean, it just is what it is. Before the game, they talking about what? We can't let this get out of hand. It's the only game on TV. I've never seen a referee rush in that fast. Like he's about to knock him out. No, break him apart. Now, again, I think it's unfortunate. You flip the ball, it looked bad. But again, you don't react, man. You go back to your huddle. You need to go get the plays or something. You got to run another naked boot and get it in the fight and get no yards. You need to get back to the huddle, man. It's not your job to go out here and try to fight him. He's agitating you, and you let him get to you. That's another situation. Is it not the same situation?
As the Anthony Miller? Well, I mean, he didn't. I don't think there was that. I mean, Anthony was unfortunately was more. I thought there was more of a physical confrontation. I got to go back and watch it. I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe he did.
Well, no, it's more. Well, Anthony, he just turned and swung. But again, I'm committed. I get up, I grab you on your shoulder. Now, again, say if I'm at Walmart, me and you at Walmart, and I look at you crazy, and then you come and grab me on my shoulder. Obviously, there's going to be a personal foul somewhere within that. You can't storm the Capitol building and not think you're not supposed to go to jail. It doesn't make sense.
Heard that last week.
Again, he's Carmen Defalco. He hosts ESPN Chicago. Carmen and Yurko weekdays 10 to noon. And he also hosts Odds Couples with Mike North Friday evenings. You guys have done a good job with that, Carm. I mean, is that something you really enjoy to do?
I mean, and now that sports gambling sort of not as taboo as it once was. I mean, it's out there in the open everywhere, and legalized in so many states now. And I mean, it's fun. Mike had an unbelievable year. I mean, this was a tough NFL season. I did not have a great year for the first time in a couple years in the NFL. I struggled picking games this year. More than I have in the last few. I thought it was a weird year. I don't know if it was how much COVID had to do with it and fans not in the stands. The home field advantage largely disappeared. But when you really look at the data, it started disappearing last year when there were still fans in the stands pre-COVID. I mean, the drop was pretty significant even from as recently as 2018, where The winning percentage for the home teams wasn't as great as it historically has been. The road underdogs were incredible this year. So it was kind of a wild year in the NFL, a little bit in college too, with some of the stops and starts and postponements and, players not being able to play last minute because of COVID protocols and things like that. But it is fun to talk sports gambling. Mike North had a great year picking NFL games. And, we do it all year, and we got a few more weeks of the NFL, which we really love. Like, NFL season's bread and butter time. So it's always so much fun, and we're thankful for a few more weekends of NFL football for sure.
So what you're telling me is Matt Nagy threw the game.
I'm not telling you Matt Nagy threw the game. He might have botched the game, DJ, but I don't think he threw the game.
He had to throw some, because in the second half, you come out and make adjustments. He was like, you know what? I bet on this one, so I'm going to keep it the same.
They didn't, you talk about adjustments. Really, DJ, and I think we all know, look at their third quarters this year, it was abysmal. But in week 12, they had 7 total third quarter points or something, right? Or 14, and one of them was a Cordell Patterson return out of halftime against the Vikings. Brutal in the third quarter. And yeah, if that's not indicative of a coaching staff, I don't know what is, right?
They'll try and mask it, though, with that 28-point third quarter against Jacksonville.
Yeah, we're not going to buy that. That's
it would have been dumb of them to win the game. You got to
completely. Would have been ridiculous.
Yeah.
A couple more things for you, Carm, then I'll let you go. So, again, the news of the day, the news of the night, Chuck Pagano retiring, and it looks like Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy will both be back for the 2021 season at least. If they don't make the playoffs, if the Bears don't make the playoffs, are we still talking about Pace and Nagy being here? And if we aren't, then I just don't see how you can't look at how this team started 5-1 and then lost 8 of their next 11. They're 1-7 against teams with winning records this season. Just how much does that playoff appearance this year? And yes, they've made it 2 of the past 3 years, but this year they back their way in. They lose to Green Bay week 17, and they have to rely on the Rams to lose against the Arizona Cardinals. So they sneak into that 7th seed. Just how much may have this playoff appearance alone? How much of an impact does it have on Pace and Nagy returning for another year?
Well, I think it's obviously impacting things now. Had they missed the playoffs, had they only won 5 or 6 games, we could be talking about something much different tonight, guys. Or we would have been doing it a week ago without the playoffs. I think it definitely saved their behinds for now. A missed playoff year next year, and I just don't know how you could justify that to the fan base or to yourselves as an organization, quite frankly. Like we talked about earlier, teams just don't have much of an appetite for losing anymore. They don't have much patience. There just hasn't been a lot of success. Unfortunately, under George McCaskey's watch, and George really, in my dealings with George, he seems like a nice man. And I think he cares deeply about the organization and he wants to win. But they're 14 or 15 games below 500 since George took over. And he's got to be feeling the pressure. He's got to be putting it on himself. I'm quite certain he is. And I don't think they're going to have the patience to sit through, just bringing everybody back if they continue on the path that we've seen here the last couple of years. 8-8, 7-9, 6-10. It's just not going to be good enough. And miss playoffs next year, certainly. This year we've obviously made the argument that even though they made the playoffs, it wasn't good enough, and they probably should have made some changes. I don't see how they could justify not making changes if they struggle again next season.
Yeah. Now, I think earlier we talked about, Chris, reports about Ted Phillips. Is that still a thing where is he coming back or is he retiring? Because now if he goes, then, once you pick that guy, then, everything, the ship can blow.
Well, that's a great point. If Ted is going to sort of, ride off into the sunset here and someone, maybe they break up, the 2 sides of the building. There's a business side and there's someone even above Ryan Pace that comes in potentially and kind of runs the football operation. And then that person's going to want to bring in his own people. So the clock is certainly ticking on Pace and Nagy. Even had they had you're just there, it ticks fast for everybody in the NFL. Everybody. Even if you win, 1 losing season or 2 losing seasons can be the difference between, you were a hero keeping your job and, you're looking for work elsewhere. So Depending on how they handle this or what the approach is, if they bring in somebody above Ryan Pace either now or next offseason, it does feel like the clock's ticking for both of them. There's no doubt.
Yeah, I just think I mean, that's the perfect way to put it. I think they're just delaying what's to come because, you got to figure out the quarterback situation. If you do bring in a young guy, is Matt Nagy going to be here to really, carry him along for the future? Or are you going to throw him in right away? Are you going to expect him to win you football games? Is Nick Foles going to be your guy at that position? That's going to be the main thing to figure out. Not to mention, you have serious concerns on the offensive line. Now you're going to have to look for a new defensive coordinator. Are you going to hire from within? Defensive line coach Jay Rodgers has been a name that I've seen Zach Pearson from the Bear Report bring up, and that makes sense, certainly, because if you're going to go outside of the box, is going to want to come to Chicago, where they might be one and done and they might clean house anyway.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, are you going to find a real young guy? Are you going to find an old guy that it's just going to be a retread? Don't know. Starting to feel more and more like they should have never let Brandon Staley out of the building a couple of years ago when Vic Fangio left. And, I don't know how much you put on them for that. I mean, I don't know that it resonated much with fans at the time. I mean, even diehard fans might not know who the outside line, a 35-year-old outside linebackers coach is. They probably didn't know. And when he left, it's just a little footnote in the transaction page,
Right. The main name was Ed Donatel, the defensive back coach.
That's a good point. Yeah. I mean, and Ed had a little bit more of a reputation at that point. Nobody really knew much about Brandon Staley, but he was Vic's, Vic's protege, and Vic took him with him. And that's obvious. Now, should the Bears have known better? I suppose you can make that argument that that's their job to kind of know what they have, not only their football, not their player personnel, but the coaching personnel they have in the building. And it's starting to look like that's just another mistake, unfortunately, on their resume, was letting Brandon leave and promoting or bringing in Chuck Pagano, because unfortunately that didn't work as well with this defense since Vic left. And Brandon Staley's the hottest young defensive name in the NFL probably right now because of what he's doing with the Rams.
Yeah, for me, I'm fine with Chuck. I'm fine with whoever else they bring in. I think defenses as a whole was just bad everywhere. So again, I think with the rules and the way that they set up and offense learning how to use the rules against defenses are just going to keep getting worse unless you set the quarterback and don't allow him to throw it, because he throws it. It's probably a 90% chance they catch it, pass interference, review it, pass interference again, holding. Because they're going to make sure they call it on the defense.
It's been trending this way for a while, and it's not going to go away. I mean, DJ knows it as well as anybody. I mean, it is an offensive league. It's a passing league. Look at the points. Every year you see more and more record. You had I think it's just the second or third time ever. I think it's the second time in NFL history that 3 quarterbacks threw for 40 touchdowns or more. There was a record number that threw for 30 touchdown passes. This stuff's only going to continue to trend in that direction. There were the fewest offensive penalties in NFL history this year. That's not a shock, right, guys? I mean, it's only going to continue to go that way. It is more and more an offensive league. And I know we can say things like, defense wins championships and it's the monsters in the midway and the Bears play defense. But if you can't score in this league, I'm sorry, you have very little chance. And all you have to do is go look at the last 10 years of data in the NFL. And the proof is in those numbers, guys. I mean, it just is. This league is about scoring points. And if you can't do it, you are in trouble, and you are going to struggle to win, and you're going to struggle to win consistently. You're doing it left-handed. Are there outliers every once in a while? Did the 2015 Broncos happen? Yeah, there are outliers every once in a while. But do you want to be the outlier, or do you want to be the team that's there each and every year because you do the one thing in this league that is important really, really well? And if you can't move the ball and you can't threaten teams deep and you can't score points in this league, you just have very little chance. I'm sorry.
And of course, the Bears have a lot of money tied up to the defense. Eddie Jackson, another down year after his contract extension. They brought in Robert Quinn, 5 years, $70 million contract. I believe 30 of that guaranteed. Of course, you got Khalil Mack, one of the highest paid defensive players in the NFL. Kyle Fuller making his money. Not to hate on the defensive guys, DJ, but Some of these guys may not be here too much longer. I mean, I don't know, but definitely got to invest more on the offensive side of the football. One last thing for me, Carmen, Mitch Trubisky, he has been here now for 4 seasons. Have we seen the last of Mitch Trubisky as a Chicago Bear?
Boy, that is tough to answer right now. I mean, 6 weeks ago, I would have thought 7 weeks ago it was a no-brainer. I'm going to say yes. I don't know how confident I am in that yes, though. I'll say that he will go elsewhere. I don't think the Bears are going to bring him back even for a year. I think Foles has got another year under contract, and that's probably their I don't know if it's their worst case scenario, but that just might be what they do, and then draft a young quarterback. And if they have to play him at some point next year, they will. But I think Trubisky has played his last snap. Again, I can't say that I'm like 100% certain or even 90 or 80% certain probably in that. But I'd say 70-30. Mitch has played his last snap as a Bear.
I can see that. I just think he's better than the other guy. And especially with adding this 17, traditionally you'll probably go 8-8, 9-7. You'll probably get in the playoffs again.
Get in 9-7 will probably get you.
It'll probably get you in again.
And he might be good enough to win you at 8 games every year. I mean, that's the last 2 years. So
yeah. So if you want to, now there's a lot of teams that ain't in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So my big thing is this, because even with like Mac, I like Mac. I think he's really good. But again, there's other people who may want him, and you can get stuff back for it though.
Hard to trade him with that cap hit. That's the only other
somebody will find a way to do any of them. My thing is everybody's up for whatever. Because really, my thing is if you want a quarterback, you're gonna almost have to, like Lego, you got to break them down and start over. Because if you don't start over, you're gonna end up 8-8 in the playoffs, sour, and have 3 talking about you
without much of a chance at 8-8.
So, I mean, you got to do something to get down there to get a quarterback or get lucky or do the whole Phillips Rivers, let me rent you for a year. Either that or go to Andrew Luck's house and sit outside and be like, you know what? Are you sure?
You sure you don't want to play?
You sure?
You feel better now after a year away? You sure you don't want to come back?
Maybe Ryan Pace could right his wrong and trade 3 first-round picks and then some for Deshaun Watson there in Houston, a guy that he could have had all along. Carm, really appreciate you taking the time tonight, man. Had a lot of fun catching up. Please let the people know where they could check out you and your work at. And I know you got Whiskey Wednesday tomorrow. What are we looking like for that?
Whiskey Wednesdays. Well, that's a good question. I'm not sure yet what's going to be on tap for tomorrow for Whiskey Wednesday. We'll find something good, I promise. Carmen and Yurko every day, 10 to 2 on ESPN 1000 and the ESPN app, and then Friday nights, Mike North and I have Odds Couple. And good seeing you, Chris. DJ, good catching up, man. And it was fun, guys. Thank you.
Absolutely. Again, he's at Carmen. What's that?
Enjoy the rest of the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. There he goes. At Carmen Defalco on Twitter. Host, again, of Carmen and Yurko on ESPN 1000 in Chicago, AM 1000, ESPNChicago.com. Also Fridays, hosts Odds Couple with Mike North, former Chicago media legend as well. So good to get him on, DJ, and certainly some good Bears conversation there. Now, just looking at this season as a whole, though, DJ, they start 5-1, then they lose 6 in a row. And again, there was a legendary coach out there, I believe it was Bill Parcells, that said, once there's a 3-game losing streak, changes are going to be made to the coaching staff. And I think that was meant like in season. That didn't happen, obviously. But today we see Chuck Pagano is retiring, whether he was forced to retire or not. That I'm sure we'll find out at a later date. But we're starting to see some changes now. It does look like both Pace and Nagy will be back. But, needless to say, that's not going to be the first domino to fall this offseason.
Oh, yeah. I think when you're looking at your team, you're looking at them from the standpoint of, have I put something together where I can win a championship? So, again, even if you bring in a quarterback that fits your system, is the quarterback the missing piece of this team? And I would say I don't think so. I think you would probably still lose to the Saints. At this particular time, you would probably still lose. You'll still lose to Green Bay, and then even if you got to the Super Bowl, those top tier teams, we're nowhere near that. And how do we get to that? Now, again, I think it does start at the quarterback position because you see when the team, has that quarterback, how their trajectory, absolutely changes. So first thing is first, find a quarterback. If you got to trade the 3-round picks in the second, whatever to get him, if you think he's a guy, and from all the viewers and from everybody who ever watched him, he looks like that guy. If you can make up for that mistake, hey, listen, you could literally change the trajectory of the team because I think with him, with Deshaun Watson, his offense would work because he wouldn't be afraid to run. And that's kind of what Mitch's problem is. It's like you're athletic enough to run, but you're so scared of getting hurt that you don't move or do anything. You know what I mean? So whatever you got to do, and whatever style of quarterback you need, go and find it, man. You need your scouts out there scouting. You need to give a Scout of the Year award. They need to find a quarterback. Bring people in. Like you said, send Tyler Bray home. And either that or put him on the coaching staff and let him help coach or something. But again, go and find people. I mean, you got Carolina had the backup from the other league that played really well. Like if that's an option, if you can bring him in and see what you can do because he's athletic and can move a little bit, he can make plays happen. Because essentially, all the quarterbacks in the league now, even like Aaron Rodgers, like really good. They can actually move around and make plays with their feet, but also flick it out there when they're outside the pocket. We can make plays, can extend plays. In teams that don't have that, you get a Taysom Hill. Like everybody has that type of player, and we need to find something like that. First round, second round, third round, for whatever round it is. We need to pick 2, 3. I don't care how many you pick. Find one of them.
No, you're absolutely right. And, you mentioned the backup quarterback in Carolina, P.J. Walker, came over from the XFL. Now he lands in the NFL with the Carolina Panthers with his college head coach, Matt Rule. His head coach at Temple is now the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. Another XFL guy, Taylor Heineke. He of course, quarterbacked the Washington football team against the Tampa Bay Bucks last week and made it a game, performed really well, threw for over 300 yards. He ran for a number of yards as well, threw 2 touchdowns, ran in 1. He's a guy that I know Chase Young and some of those defensive players even on that Washington team really speak up for and show a lot of confidence in. I know a lot of people in Chicago were looking at Heineke's performance against Tampa in the playoffs, and they're already not everybody, but a lot of people were already sold on him. I don't know if I'm sold on bringing somebody like that in to be my starter day one, but you're going to have to do something, especially if Mitch Trubisky walks and you don't bring him back for another year. And if I'm Mitch Trubisky, I probably do move on. And you hear some of the things that are being said in press conferences between the coaches and then Mitch himself. I mean, it almost sounds like some sort of word battle is going on. And, I don't think there's much of a great relationship there. And actually, here's Mitch Trubisky after the game Sunday against the Saints. DJ asked if he thinks he'll be back here in Chicago.
I'm good. Mitch, do you want to be back here next year?
Yeah, I think I could definitely see myself back here next year. Obviously, a lot of that's out of my control, but it feels like home, and it feels like we have unfinished business. And right now, I'm really just bummed about how the season being over and how the game went. So a lot of emotions going on right now, but I could see that, but we'll see. There's a lot of things that got to happen and a lot of decisions that got to be made, and it's out of my control, but I could see that.
So the question was, would you like to be back here? Doesn't seem like he would. I mean, I know it's a tough situation, a playoff loss, your season's over. And, again, it isn't in his control. So he may have very well just played his last game in Chicago. But do you want to be back in Chicago? Yeah, I could see that. I mean, didn't really necessarily say he wanted to be back in Chicago.
Well,
and I don't blame him. I don't blame him.
Well, as a player, you gotta, but again, it's out of my control. And hey, man, if I end up somewhere else, I'm gonna end up like Leonard Floyd. I'm gonna blow up, and then you're gonna look bad. All right, so hey, don't sign me back. Is what he's saying. Try me. But again, he's an athletic kid. I think sometimes it takes a new beginning, a fresh start. But again, honestly, he has all the tools. He's shown that he can throw it down the field. Now they dropped it in that game, and he threw a couple down passes. We know that he's athletic. We don't know why you go from 500 rushing yards to like 1 rushing yard. Doesn't make any sense. But again, if he can get back to just being confident, just hey man, just run, just whenever it ain't there, just use your athleticism, get some yards, get up, let's go, man. Because I think you'll be whenever you're able to run and move the sticks a little bit more, you'll get more points. Instead of us getting 3, I think if he used his legs more, you would get more touchdowns, honestly.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's something mentally with him or what it might be. I mean, you've seen he could have maybe given a little bit more of an effort on 4th down, 4th and short in the playoff game.
All he had to do was just fall forward on his face, and he would have had the first down. Like no quarterback has ever done that. Like,
and he came up 1 yard short.
No. Not tried on 4th down to run. Right. He'd be over.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't even have to run him over because he didn't want to hit you anyway. So again, it's like that's weird to me when you look at that. And I'm like, if I'm interviewing, like, hey man, what was your thinking on 4th down when you seen the first down marker, but you went out of bounds before the first down marker on purpose? What was the thinking behind that?
DJ, you gotta work your you gotta work your connects, man, because I don't think that question was even asked in the post game press conference. So you gotta get in there, man. You gotta work. You gotta bring the.
No, it's just hard to. I ain't got no connect. It's just hard to fathom, and it's like once you see that, it's like you know what, like, because it makes you question, like, man, do you want this thing? Because that was odd. No one would have did that. No, I mean, everyone would have tried to get that first down. And it's like, and essentially, that's the game right there. Like, can we keep going? Can we get points? Can we make this happen? It's like, I'm not going to try to get the first down.
I've seen Cutler lower his shoulder before.
Listen, playoffs, we've seen quarterbacks get carried down the field, man. And then when I seen it, it's like, you know what, that's your career in Chicago was just that. It's like, man, you're close, but some reason the bulb didn't turn on, and you went the opposite way you were supposed to go. So I don't know. Hopefully you get it straight. Hopefully it works out for him. If it's here or if it's somewhere else, but I would assume. You know what? I wouldn't even assume. I don't know. It's just still up, and I don't know what it would be because I'm bringing the coaching staff back. We talked about it like I'm going to draft a new QB to mold under you, but then the new guy who comes in probably didn't scout him as high, so that's a whole nother situation.
Basically what we just went through.
So, again, like Matt Ryan's and those veteran quarterbacks, I think it'll be one of those guys or a Matthew Stafford or somebody who can, that they can push it down the field. And even with Stafford, I think he can't run, but he's really slippery in the pocket at times. So I think you can see guys like that to where it's like, okay, if you got a Mooney and you got a Stafford, you can push it down the field. Even in Matt Ryan, if you ain't seen nothing from Matt Ryan, he'll push it down the field and they'll play good randomly. Because after that Super Bowl, man, they could not recover after that.
No. And it seems like that's the entire city of Atlanta, man. I mean, not good. Not good. So one last thing before we wrap up the show, DJ. You mentioned some guys that they might target in free agency at the quarterback position. Let's each give 3 or 4 positions that you'd like to see the team focus in on. I'll kick things off. I unfortunately do not see Allen Robinson returning to Chicago, and that'll leave Darnell Mooney, Anthony Miller, and then both Miller and Javon Wims. Their future is obviously up in the air. They are still under contract for one more year, but there's no doubt they'll be battling for their position on this roster next season in training camp. Darnell Mooney seems to be the only sure thing. I'm not really sure what's going on with Riley Ridley, but it seems like whenever he does get a chance, whenever he is in the game, he does, it seems like he is running decent routes. He's finding ways to get open. And, so I'm really curious how Riley Ridley has gotten into this doghouse of sorts, but I'd like to see him get more of an opportunity. But from what we've seen in the past 2 seasons and the fact that he's inactive more times than not, that shows you that, his spot is going to be up for grabs next year as well. So, again, I don't see Allen Robinson returning next year. Darnell Mooney, it seems like he has a great future here. But you're gonna have to bring in more bodies, not only in the draft. You're gonna have to add some veteran players as well. I'm not saying break the bank on any of these guys. Certainly not if you're not willing to do that for Allen Robinson. But I think that's definitely going to be a focus in the offseason is shoring up the wide receiver position. Is it on the wide receiver coach Mike Furry that he's not getting the potential out of these guys? I don't know what it is. He may be a guy that maybe he gets cut loose this offseason. I know he's actually, and he's a guy, he's probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite coach on this coaching staff. But he's a guy that his name has come up for the Marshall head coaching job. He was a former head coach at a D2 program before he landed the receivers coach job here in Chicago. So maybe he takes a head coaching gig at the college ranks. Marshall, his alma mater, that's where he went. That's where he played at. So maybe he goes and tests that out. We'll see. But, he's a guy that they have invested some draft picks at wide receiver, and really only Darnell Mooney has panned out. Anthony Miller, Riley Ridley was a 4th-round pick. Anthony Miller, they traded up and grabbed him in the 2nd round. Wims was a 7th. I mean, I'm not sure how much you put down the positional coach or not. I don't know, but certainly a position.
I think you put on a positional coach. I think you just the offense. Because even to say Mooney has panned out, you might well say Miller panned out because, again, he had a good first year.
Right. Still too early.
I mean, so, again, I don't think you put on a position coach. It just my guys can run the routes, but if you only got them running to the flat, I mean, it's just your offensive plays. So, again, I think the receiver coach is fine, but if I get the opportunity to have a head coaching job at Marshall, I'm down.
Even so, if your alma mater, Vanderbilt, gives DJ a call,
I'm gonna call you and say, "Hey, man, we're gonna do this show, but we're gonna just change the background. You know what I mean? We gotta do something different." Because Marshall isn't a bad program. I'm sure he wants to be a head coach, and when I coach him, I don't like to listen to people that much. No, when you get to be a head coach, I get to listen a little less. When I'm a receiver coach, you shut up and run the routes I told you to run. Yes, sir. You run the route. So when we go to the meeting, I'm like, what happened to you? He didn't run them routes I told you to tell him to run? Well, yeah, but get him to run them because you're doing something wrong. So, again, it's for sure. It's for me, I think it's DBs, really. I think you should never go into a season where, like, you go down and you don't have veteran DBs. I think you can always find them because it's like even in the playoff, in the situations like that, just having guys who've been there, that's been playing a while, it just makes it much easier. To have those young guys out there, eyes wide open and everything just kind of seem like it's flashing in front of their faces. I think as a GM, you got to always have a plethora of DBs. I think this defense, to me, went down when – like if you don't have like a Mukamara, that type of player where it's like, yeah, you may get beat at times, but I trust you though.
And that was the name that popped up in my mind as well, DJ. They could have snatched him up. He was on the Cardinals practice squad. He was, he was there for grabs. Even when these guys were going down, that was the name that I was looking out for.
Like, and it just doesn't like a veteran guy that like knows how to play because is he going to be better than a Vildo, especially your first year? Yeah, probably so. But again, you gotta try to find piece those veteran guys together, and then you'll have an Eddie Jackson and he'll look a little better. Because if he's just back there by himself with just random guys, he gonna just look. The defense itself is gonna look bad as a whole, especially up front when you kind of beat up and Quinn is not getting to the quarterback or Mack is not getting to the quarterback. It's gonna be on them guys back there. And if you can't do anything like that, you're gonna end up what we were doing the other day, was just running a lot of cover 2 and getting picked apart, and hopefully you can get a script sack and stuff like that, or peanut punch or something.
That's right. So yeah, I mean, defense, and I hear you said defensive back. I mean, that's cornerback, and who knows what they're going to do as safety. Eddie Jackson's locked up under contract, but Tashawn Gibson came here only on a 1-year deal. I thought he had a pretty good game Sunday against the Saints. Certainly a better game than the guy opposite side of him, Eddie Jackson. At least for Sunday, I thought Tashawn Gibson had a really.
I was going to second you and say, honestly, the last 2 years, the opposite guys played better than the.
Right. Haha.
Yeah, so I think played better, and then Gibson, I think as a collective whole played better because he consistently tackled, and that's what the other guy honestly needs to do because he's more of the wrong guy. But again, he won't work as well if they're not a lot of sacks because he just works on time. He's going to read the quarterback. If the quarterback goes and does that, he's a good reader of the quarterback. But again, if you're not getting pressure, it is terribly hard to read a quarterback just looking everywhere. Terribly hard. So, yeah, but again, I think Gibson played good enough to get paid. But again, you ain't going to pay him because every year you bring in somebody, you just bringing in somebody that's going to thump some people, and you can find thumpers. I can promise you that.
Yeah, I mean, Clinton Dix is on the street, so we'll see what happens with the safety position. Another one, obviously, and I'll say them both back to back: quarterback, offensive line. You can't go into the season with Nick Foles as your lone guy at quarterback. Your starter for next year. In the very least, you're going to have to bring somebody in to compete. And if he wins the job out, then you'll have to roll with him, I suppose. But there's going to have to be Nick Foles, maybe another veteran quarterback, and then they have to address the position in the draft at some point. They have to, especially Ryan Pace. You're coming back. All right, what was his quote? From his introductory press conference when he was hired 6 years ago. I plan on drafting a quarterback every year in the draft. He's drafted one, and that's Mitch Trubisky. He's going to have to draft another quarterback this year, whether that's round 1 or round 7. He's going to need to get a developmental guy in here, and I think they probably do add another veteran quarterback. It'd be nice, I mean, I don't know contractually if it'll work out. It'd be nice to get a Derek Carr, although the Raiders said that they're committed to him for next season. But obviously, we've heard that before from the Raiders. Khalil Mack would like to have a word. A Derek Carr or even a Matthew Stafford or a Matt Ryan. But I'm not sure if that's really going to be able to work out. With the cap space, and then on the offensive line, DJ. I mean, I think you got to move on from Charles Leno Jr. and maybe even Bobby Massey as well. And really address that in the draft. Hopefully, within those first 2 picks, you get a nice offensive lineman. Maybe one falls down to you at pick number 20. I think right now they probably do go, and we still got a lot of time to go. But I think as it sits right now, offensive line will probably be the first round draft pick. Charles Leno, I think you can save $9 million if you get rid of him. And I just don't think he's really living up to his contract. He had one really nice year in 2018, which he was able to capitalize with a nice payday. But since then, really struggling. And that's your left tackle, the protector of the blind side. And he has not been doing that the last couple of years. Bobby Massey, an older veteran, getting paid the way he is. He's the second highest paid offensive lineman on this Bears team. You could save, I believe, $6 million or somewhere near there if you cut ties with him. He was banged up for most of the year, and you then brought in the two undrafted rookies that Carmen brought up, Sam Mustipher at center, Alex Bars at guard. They were teammates at Notre Dame. I thought, as Carmen said, this offensive line really started to play better when they were inserted in. Maybe those are pieces you could build behind, especially Sam Mustipher. I really like what he did at center. And then once you get James Daniels back, you get him at guard, push Cody Whitehair back at guard like he has been the last few weeks, and you might have something there. But those are the positions. Again, it's not a surprise by any means, but certainly quarterback. Even if Mitch walks, even if Mitch comes back, you're going to have to address that in the draft. In the very least, and I expect maybe even free agency as well, because I do not expect Mitch to come back. And then offensive line, that's going to be that's going to have to be addressed in a few different spots, both free agency and the draft.
Oh yeah, and you said it. I won't even jump back on that. Really, just find a way, find a path to get a quarterback, and find a path, the way to protect him, and that's about it.
All right, well, that's going to do it for tonight. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Of course, Facebook Live, Twitter Live, or if you're listening, YouTube Live as well, or if you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, wherever it may be. Once again, special thanks to Carmen Defalco of ESPN 1000 for joining the show, talking some Bears as well. Follow him on Twitter at Carmen Defalco. That's DEFALCO. And again, appreciate everybody for tuning in. Once again, Chuck Pagano out as Bears defensive coordinator.
Retired.
He retired. Right.
Jeez,
retired. He's out of here. Bears got a position to fill, and I have a feeling that there's going to be a few more openings as well. But it won't be general manager. It won't be head coach, as Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy will be back. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Chris and DJ Show. Follow DJ at DJ Moore 30, and I'm also at Chris Shanafelt. And again, appreciate everybody tuning in. And until next time, everybody. Again, this is going to be a pretty hectic offseason, I have a feeling. But again, Pace, Nagy,